Everyone's here. All right. Okay. Rolling. We're going to go back to the meeting after our adjournment. So I think we have just the consent agenda, correct? The first three items on the consent agenda.
That and the reports.
And the reports. So let's go ahead and item 1: approve minutes for meeting of September 19th and October 3rd, 2013.
Okay, so I think Chris, you pulled the items, so maybe
Sure.
you want to take this on.
I wasn't at the October 3rd meeting, so I'd want to abstain from that. I think it was, no, 17th, excuse me.
Right.
No, the issue was, why didn't we have October 17th minutes?
October 17 minutes, we haven't been able to prepare yet.
Okay. I guess my concern is that was a critical meeting. I mean, all these things are occurring right on top of each other, right? The October 17th meeting is the one where my concern was that we had the board members in oral comments rebuting a editorial that I did the prior week. So my concern is that that's accurately reflected. So I'll just pass that off to you. A couple minor points on the meeting of the 3rd. There was a roll call. This is on page 3 at the top to approve the minutes. If it's a roll call vote, don't you put down the names of who voted how?
Should, yes.
So maybe we should just reflect, my recollection is I was the one that voted no.
Which one was that?
On the third,
Top of page
it's
3?
all in favor.
The roll call vote was called for and the motion passed 4-1.
Oh, wait, you're looking at October 3rd, page 3?
No, this is September.
Oh, okay. We're looking at October 3rd.
Okay, September 19th, top of page 3.
Yeah, on a roll call, it should be by name unless it's unanimous.
Right. And the only other comment I have on those is on page 8, Director's Report. Director Colwell passed out documents for the board to review. If you could identify what they were, it was a comparison of the P&L for CCWD, MWSD, and North Coast County. And the second was a detail of legal costs over the last 5 years.
Is this on page 8 of the same, on
Yes.
September 19th?
Yes, item 7.
Okay. Do you have the? Okay.
So with that change, I'd make a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting of September 19th.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstain? Okay. Pass 4, nothing. Okay, so second item, approve financial statements.
Now we have the October 3rd meeting minutes to
I'm
approve.
sorry.
Oh,
that
that
I'm
was,
abstaining
okay.
from.
Okay.
Okay, I move for approval of the
Thank you.
October 3rd minutes. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
Aye, I abstain.
You abstain? Okay. So 3 ayes, 1 abstention. So the second item, approve financial statements for August, September, and October 2013.
Okay, I requested that be pulled. Again, I'd like to thank Clemens for taking the time to go through and identify those variances. It's a critical element. I asked that it be pulled so I can make that statement, 1. 2, I haven't had time to review these. This came to me at the beginning of this meeting, and I'd hope going forward that the Finance Committee would have enough time before meeting to review them. So I'm going to abstain on approval of the financials.
So I move approval of the financial statements.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those,
I'll abstain.
abstain, okay. 3 aye, 1 abstention.
Okay, the third item that I asked to be pulled was the warrants for November 1st and December 1st. And again, my concern was the cancellation of the meetings, and particularly given the discussion that we've had previously about budget, where majority of the board felt that the budget was maybe not advisory, but their primary point of control was approval of the warrants before those payments are made. This is a situation where, rightfully so, Clemens had to send out payments to avoid late charges and other impacts to our credit rating. For me, this underscores the necessity of being clear about what an approved budget means. Approved budget to me is the authorization for the general manager to make expenditures on behalf of the district. And that's my only point.
I move approval of the warrants.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? All those against? All right, so it passes 3.
4. No,
4.
Oh,
Okay, I'm sorry. All right. All right. Okay, reports. Sewer Authority Mid-Coast we had a meeting October 28th, and we did a couple of things. We approved an increase in the contract amount to Anderson Pacific Engineering Construction for the Granada Force Main repair from 1.27 million to 1.328, and the board approved that unanimously. There was some problems with the force main repair. The lines, the power lines were in the way, so they had to bring in different kinds of trucks and different kinds of equipment to avoid hitting the lines and to take some precautions, and that wasn't foreseen by the contractor. And I think that was the main issue. And then we did some other things. We discussed recruitment of the general manager. There is maybe one of the personnel committee member from SAM is here present. He might comment as to the status and the progress of that.
So we put out the notice of the availability of the position. We have a stack of resumes. We are going through those, and we'll have those in front of the board with recommendations for bringing people in for interviews soon.
Yeah, those are the main items. Unless, Scott, do you want to add anything?
Just looking at well, I mean, one of the things for some time now, we've had the managers of all 4 agencies meet, and that is our general manager here, the general manager at Granada, and the city manager or the city manager's representative from Half Moon Bay, and the general manager of SAM, meeting together. Sometimes, I think, sometimes with engineers, and sometimes just themselves. This has been, to some degree, in some sense, a kind of provided opportunity for the board for peer review of some of the things that have been coming to the board. So we're getting kind of a second round of professional insight and thought, and sometimes discussion and problem solving. So one thing that's been happening since we got an interim manager in place is that she's been looking at some things and has raised some concerns about about our capital planning priorities, and made a presentation to us. it was a very nice presentation. It was very much in line with much of what we've been talking about for some time now about end-of-life planning for our capital infrastructure, where you identify all your assets, you figure out when they were purchased, what their life expectancy was, what it would cost to replace them, and line this out on a timeline so you can figure out year over year or quarter over quarter what your equipment replacement needs would be if you were simply to replace outright when things wore out. And of course, in reality, some things wear out sooner and some things you can nurse along and take good care of, and they last much longer than you anticipated. And a good example of that would be the main generator at the plant. It's now, I think, some extraordinary number of decades old, but it's a very expensive thing to replace, and so it gets more loving care to keep it properly maintained and available for when PG&E goes out, or we need, or PG&E needs to, for example, do some work on their lines or transformers, or whatever the circumstances. We need that thing sitting there. And that is about the size of a diesel locomotive. It is essentially the motive force in a locomotive. These things are quite often what you see on the rail lines. So in looking at a number of things that we had in the capital program, she had some thoughts. I think in general, I don't disagree with much of what she says. I think she's still taking it all in, and so some things are going to, I think there's going to be some 50,000 foot perspective that'll be gained as we have additional conversations in the managers' meetings and at the board meetings. But I think overall her notion of putting together an end-of-life planning approach to capital replacement is sound, and I fully agree with it, especially since I've been promoting that and have done it professionally over the course of the past decade myself. So I think every new person, now I'll say this to our new members, and I know you've seen new members come on to boards. Everybody comes in fresh. Some things are going to take on great importance, and then we'll have the back and forth, and we'll get it settled down into essentially some plan to go forward. But that was actually a rather significant thing that happened in the meeting. Prior to that, she's been quietly working on some things and not bringing it to the board. And in terms of transparency and transparency, especially with an interest towards making sure that any work that she did would have an opportunity to be successful, I prevail on her to bring this stuff forward and make sure the board's aware so the board can be supportive as we go. Don't drop it on us, don't surprise us, because then you get the antibody reaction where you go, hey, where's all this coming from? It's going to be millions of dollars, what she's proposing. And you just don't drop that on the board. That said, she's got some good ideas. We'll work through some of this stuff. I anticipate that we'll make some modifications to the CIP, and that she will make some modifications to her perspective on it as she gets additional input. So she's done a good thing of putting this on the table and get some conversations going. But this is important to us as a board to be aware that we're going to take essentially a pretty fresh look at this. I'm a little frustrated because we've been having, as I started this soapbox, we've been having the managers meet. So the CIP that we've got is a joint cooperative project or product now. So I don't think we're way off base on what we've got, because we've actually involved not only our managers but our engineers. And normally this would be the kind of thing where the SAM manager and the SAM engineer would put together their belief, perhaps consulting with the other agencies, but it's their responsibility to put forward what they want in a capital improvement program and to prioritize things and help us understand the ramifications and the budget implications, what might happen in emergencies if we don't, what it might cost to extend the life of something. So we've gone well beyond that in having the managers meetings and having the engineers participate, so the thing has been worked back and forth. So,
Sorry to interrupt, but the CIP was prepared without the manager's input first, and was then reviewed by the board, and then from the board submitted to the managers for review, and that's
Right.
where it is right now. So we're right now all in agreement that the prioritization of the projects is something that we gotta look at, and that's
Yeah.
what the SAM general
Well-
manager is trying to structure fairly good.
well, yes, and this is that, we're at that point between moving from the CIP of last budget year into this new CIP. And most CIPs are evolutionary documents that evolve somewhat from year to year. And I think what I reacted to was the notion on some of the prioritizations, in particular, starting with the notion that relocating or securing our ability to keep the generator and the electrical plant going in case of a flood of the plant, which could happen by tsunami or by other devastating means. But the tsunami is kind of the easy scenario to imagine. In this year, we became painfully aware that it resides at the lowest point in the plant. And if you remember what killed the Fukushima nuclear plant, what made that such a disaster was that their generators were at the low point. When the tsunami overtopped their berm, it flooded out their generator, and it killed their electrical system, and it made it impossible for them to keep the pumps going, which is absolutely 100% mission critical for keeping a nuclear plant going, or in our case, a sewer plant. If we lose power and the ability to power our pumps, that plant floods, and there's nothing we can do about it unless we bring in all new equipment, all emergency equipment, and it's going to be an environmental catastrophe that none of us wants to face. So, starting with, I think that's the wrong priority, just kind of dropping that on the board. We're going to back up. We're going to approach it again. I think we've got a fairly nice approach going now, and I'm glad to find out that you are all working on juggling out what you think the priorities are. I think that's the right way to go. So this is just informational. I just wanted to let you know this is all ongoing. It's kind of new. It was a bit of a surprise, but I think we're past the surprise now and into the real work.
All right. East Coast Community Council. Bill, you want to give us anything? Nothing?
No, next meeting, they're gonna swear in 4 new members, that's the only thing I know of, but I haven't seen an agenda yet.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Bob?
Nothing. I mean,
No, nothing. Aqua. CSDA, because Catherine's not here. Integrated Regional Water Management Plan,
no.
nothing. Attorney's report?
Report.
Okay. Any director's report? Okay.
One item. It came up, and I'm sorry I didn't think to say this when Judy was here earlier, but she asked how soon are we going to be able to sell permits for water connections. And we basically answered, as soon as the commission approves, that'll put us in a position where we are lined up and ready to go. One thing to know about the way the commission works, the last time we did the PWP with the commission, that was down at a meeting in Long Beach, we all went. There was a great deal of fun, if you like agony, and it was interesting, but the commission wound up adding some conditions verbally when they approved it. So a necessary step at that point, and what we went through was their staff had to draft that into language. They had to pass it past us to see if we could live with the way it was worded. And once we hammered out something we could agree on, I believe the executive director had the authority to go ahead and complete the deal. But if they freewheel and add some stuff verbally, we may be looking at some number of weeks or small number of months to get that hammered out before we actually have the authority to do it. So if anybody talks to Judy, I'm certainly hoping that we don't go through that process, but that is what we went through last time. And if somebody's in a hurry to get water connections, that's one of the real things that really is outside of our control. That's in the control of the commission itself, and then if they choose that path, then the commission staff will, you know, how fast can they draft it, and do they draft it right the first time, and, you know, it's, we're very motivated to make that interval as short as possible, hopefully 0, but,
But I would think by the next meeting, you will have a relative timeline as to what you would be anticipating based on the feedback you got at the meeting. So
oh, yeah.
I would think in the next board meeting, we ought to be able to say in reasonably succinct language.
I sure hope so. It was just that we left Judy without that information, and
Knowing Judy, I'm sure she'll be back in contact. I think.
I hope so. I hope so. No, I really do, but she communicates a lot.
I don't
with
think
people
Judy
who-
will be the first one to be, I think it'll be in our best interest just to be as clear in English at the next board meeting to give them a
Yep.
timeline. We'll probably be done with that. So.
Well, we've always had the timelines presented when we get to those things. It was just that was, I think our answer just didn't convey that, and I may email her just to close the loop on that.
Okay, any other director's report? General manager's report?
No.
Okay, future agenda items, anyone, anything for future agenda?
Are we anticipating a second meeting in December?
Yes, we anticipate to bring back the now Coastal Commission approved Public Works Plan, and hope that this board can then ratify whatever the Coastal Commission actually approved as a document.
And that would be on the 19th?
19th.
Right. Okay, nothing else? Meeting's adjourned at 9:58.